She stood behind him, pulled the trigger, and felt the relief she so desperately needed. Marianne Bachmeier had ended the life of the man who brutally raped and murdered her daughter in front of the judge. The woman's prepared execution shocked the whole of Germany. While some supported her, others saw her as a criminal. But for Marianne, this was only the culmination of a plan that, more than giving her peace of mind, sought to end the life of the man who ended hers. She was sentenced to only 6 years, but served 3. The judge had understood the motivation and how her head worked at the time, but years later she would reveal the truth behind it all. Marianne's story was always marked by tragedy. Her relationship with her parents was far from close. She barely spoke to her mother and struggled day by day with the stigma of being the daughter of a former Nazi army officer. However, the suffering didn't stop there, because when she was 16 years old, she became pregnant and her mother forced her to give the baby up for adoption. 2 years later, she went through the same thing, this time with a child born as a result of a rape, one of the many rapes she suffered throughout her life. There was no light in Marianne's existence, but when she turned 23, Anna appeared in her life, the daughter she decided to raise as a single mother, no matter what that implied at the time. Anna became Marianne's eyes. Everything she did was related to the welfare of her little daughter. She saw in her a hope to emerge and to get away from all the suffering she had experienced when she was younger. However, just as everything was blooming, the shadow of Klaus Grabowski appeared, a local butcher who became the worst nightmare imaginable for her and her little girl. Anna had told her mother she was going to play with a friend. However, she had been seduced by Grabowski, who invited her to his house to spend time with his cats. That was enough for the girl to decide to lie to her mother and set off for the place where all her dreams would end. What follows is brutal. She arrives at the home of this ruthless butcher and began a nightmare from which she couldn't escape. She was kidnapped, raped, and later murdered. The terrible criminal's plan was to bury the body and then pretend as if nothing had happened, but he made the mistake of telling his girlfriend, who finally turned him in to the police. What happened was chilling, and it was what finally completely destroyed Marianne's world. As soon as she learned what had happened to her daughter, she vowed revenge. She didn't tell anyone, but in her head there was a clear idea. She had to have some kind of retribution for all the suffering she had to go through before leaving this world. And that was how, without anyone knowing, she got a Beretta M1934 pistol, learned how to use it, and prepared for the big day. She was part of the hearings against Klaus Grabowski, and although she said absolutely nothing, she made her presence felt there. Her pain was something that didn't go unnoticed. Her time to participate would come on March 6, 1981. It was all set for her to testify against the man who had murdered little Anna in the most macabre way possible. But she had another idea in mind, a very different one. She arrived a little later at the court. The guards didn't check her as they check everyone, not knowing that in her coat, she was hiding the weapon with which she was determined to take revenge. When Marianne entered the courtroom, the criminal was already seated. She approached him quietly until she reached his back, and when no one was expecting it, she drew her pistol and fired 8 times, although the last bullet didn't go off. The image left everyone frozen, except for the guards who came to restrain her after her revenge. She was in a kind of trance, but she was able to say a few words. She felt happy because she had done justice, but she was frustrated because she couldn't shoot him head on so she could see his face. "Pig, he killed my daughter. I wanted to shoot him in the face, but I shot him in the back. I hope he's dead." Marianne decided to tell the investigators that she wasn't fully aware of what she was doing. However, no one believed her, that she hadn't practiced with the gun before using it. And it was there, among all the expert opinions, that she was asked to write something on a piece of paper to analyze her handwriting. That was a way to see if she was in a kind of trance or not. What Marianne wrote down shocked everyone. "I did it for you, Anna," along with 7 hearts, one for each year that the little girl lived, as well as for the number of bullets with which she killed Klaus Grabowski. German society was completely divided. While some supported her and called her the avenging mother, others saw her as a criminal who did justice in the worst possible way. She was finally sentenced to serve 6 years in prison, although she was only incarcerated for 3 years before her release. Once out of prison, she emigrated to Nigeria, where she married, but then settled alone in Sicily, to then return to Germany to live out her last days there. And it was when she returned to her native country that she gave her only interview. There she confessed something that had been speculated for years. Was she in a trance at the time she killed Grabowski? The answer was one, and it was the most coherent of all. She had meticulously prepared the assassination of the man who had taken away her most precious being, the one for whom she was willing to give her life for, and who finally vanished.